February of 1983, a 20-year-old woman walked out of a hideaway. She bowed to the images of Mahatma Gandhi and Goddess Durga and surrendered herself to the authority of Madhya Pradesh. To witness this was a crowd of 10,000, apart from the 300 policemen and the then Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Arjun Singh. For the crowd and a lot of people in India, she was known as a murderess, a bandit, moreover a hero even before she was seen in the public. This is the story of Phoolan Devi, the celebrated Bandit Queen of India. I'm your host Amala and you're listening to Crime Time Podcast. For the first ever episode of this podcast, I have for you the story of Phoolan Devi. To give a little bit of a background about her, Phoolan Devi was born in August of 1963 in a small village of Gurakapurwa in Jalun district of Uttar Pradesh. She was born into a Malha family. Now, for the ones who don't know the Malhas, they are a community in India, a community of boatmen. The Malha community in the Indian Constitution is either under the OBC or the SC category. She was the fourth and the youngest child of Mula and Devi Din Malha. From the four children, only Phoolan Devi and her older sister Choti Devi survived to adulthood. Phoolan's family was very poor and their only asset was a 1-acre farmland. After her grandparents passed away, her father's elder brother became the head of the family. He had a son named Maya Din Malha who proposed to cut down a neem tree which was the part of the land Phoolan Devi's family owned. Even though there were protests against the idea, her father agreed to it eventually. But Phoolan Devi, the 10-year-old, realized that they were tricking them and that they were trying to steal the land from them. So she publicly insulted and humiliated Maya Din Malha and protested against it. She even performed a dharna, which means a sit-in on the land, and did not end it even after several attempts of using force from the family members. Eventually, she was beaten until she was unconscious with a brick. Following the event and the bad name it brought to the family, they decided to marry off Phoolan. At this time, Phoolan was only 11 years old. She was married to Putilal Malha in exchange for a bicycle and a cow. Putilal Malha was 3 times Phoolan's age. But only a few days after her marriage, she returned home because of the abuses and beatings from her husband. Her return was questioned by the villagers and they asked the family to return her because of the disgrace it brought to the village. Now we need to understand that while all of this was going on, she was only 11 years old and she was a girl. And for a girl to behave like that is not something that is acceptable in the Indian society. And also, Phoolan was known for her use of foul language, and therefore everyone resented her for speaking out loud as a girl to the elders. The upper castes in the villages nearby heard about Phoolan since she had become the talk of the village. They even stopped her often on the road and asked her to meet them privately, tease her and even harass her at times. But Phoolan, being the badass she is, she always retaliated with boldness and shooed them off. In 1978, the issues with her family and Maya Dins were taken to court. The issue about the property land. Now again these two, that is Phoolan Devi and Maya Din, got into physical fights. Being fed up of Phoolan's attitude, her family begged her husband to take her back. When Phoolan got to know about this plan, she ran off from the village. And when Phoolan did not return for days, Maya then lodged a fake case against her, stating that she robbed his house along with some other dacoits. He even produced false witnesses. Now Mayadin was able to pull all of this off because Mayadin's sister's husband, Mansukh, was a police inspector. It was with this power and help that he could make all of this possible. Since Phoolan Devi was nowhere to be found, her father was arrested and kept in prison. The police officer said that her father would only be released if Phoolan reported to the police station. Eventually, Phoolan came to know about this incident and she returned to the village to release her father. When Phoolan Devi reached the police station, Maya then had brought the Sarpanch and several other villagers as witness to her crime, and so the police officers asked her to plead guilty. But Phoolan Devi refused all of the accusations, and so she was beaten brutally with lathi to make her confess. But Phoolan didn't break. She was told that her mother was getting them a lawyer, and so she kept her silence. But after day 1 of torture and her not breaking, the police inspector Mansukh took her to another room and locked her up. Now, in autobiography of hers written by Mary Teresa, she talks about this incident in detail. She said that she was locked up in a room with several other police officers, and Mansukh asked them to do whatever they want to do with her, as nobody would ever know about this incident, and that Phoolan herself wouldn't open her mouth about whatever they were going to do to her. And so she was locked up in that room for several days with those men. Then she was brought out and locked up with her father, and again bet her. Phoolan now broke down and agreed to the accusations made by them. And eventually she was taken to the court. But in the court she pleaded not guilty. After few days she was given bail by the court. Maya then was upset about the fact that Phoolan Devi was not imprisoned, and so as she was returning to home, he was preparing his next trap for her. He paid one of the then strongest gangs of dacoits led by Babu Singh Gujjar to kidnap her. And so they came to Phoolan's village the same night she came back from the court. They kidnapped Phoolan from her home and took her with them. The leader, Babu Gujjar, raped her for 3 days straight. When Phoolan Devi was absolutely helpless and suffering, one of the gang members called Vikram Malha stepped in. Vikram was also from the Malha community. Now, one thing we need to know about Babu Gujjar's gang is that theirs was a mixed caste gang. There were Thakurs, Gujjars and Malhas. But even then, there were problems that arose within the gang based on caste. Even before Phoolan came in, the Malhas were having problem with the Thakurs and Gujjars. It wasn't a gang of unity as Babu Gujjar had thought of. Now Vikram was displeased to learn about Phoolan, a fellow Mulha, only 15 years old, being raped by the upper castes. So, on the third night, Vikram Malha shot Babu Gujjar on his head and declared himself as the new leader. He also declared that Phoolan was now his woman and that no one should dare to touch her. Vikram Mulha was someone who always helped the lower castes who were abused by the upper castes. So nearby to Bundelkhand, where they were staying, was a village called Asthagram. He spoke to the villagers there. He took an oath in front of Ma Bhavani Devi, stating that he will protect the village. And also in front of the village, he presented Phoolan as the chosen one, or someone who took the form of Durga Devi to take care of the village. He gave her the iconic red headband that he took from the temple and said that now it's a new life that she's going to live from now on. And so, Phoolan started her journey as the Bandit Queen. Her first act was an act of revenge. She went to her first husband's village to attack him. She herself dragged him out of his house and stabbed him several times in front of the villagers. But she did not kill him. Instead, she let him survive with a scar of a lifetime to live with. From then on, she was part of all the attacks the gang performed in Bundelkhand. They attacked the upper castes, kidnapped them and asked for a ransom, or committed highway robbery. She would visit a Durga temple after every crime she committed and thanked the goddess for protection. Vikram taught her something she stood by. He taught her, and I quote, "If you're going to kill 20, not just one. For if you kill 20, your fame will spread. If you kill only one, they will hang you as a murderess." End quote. And so, this continued on for some time until two upper caste Rajput brothers, Shri Ram and Lalla Ram, got out of jail and returned to the gang. After learning what happened to Babu Gujjar, they were furious and blamed Phoolan for everything. They were also upset about the fact that Vikram Malha, who belonged to a lower caste, was their gang leader. And so in 1980 of August, Vikram Malha was shot dead by the upper castes in the gang. Phoolan's only protection was lost. And so the two brothers took Phoolan to a Thakur-led village called Behmai. Phoolan was now 17 years old. In the village that she was taken into, she was raped there for 3 weeks by the villagers. Some even say that she was asked to parade naked in the village. After 3 weeks of torture, one night she finally could escape the village with the help of another decoy called Man Singh. Man Singh and Phoolan together escaped and eventually formed a only Malha gang. They got famous and everyone in Bundelkhand started to know about them. And after a few years, when the gang was powerful enough, Phoolan returned to the village where she was raped for 3 weeks. She reached Behmai. She went there to get her revenge. She asked for the two brothers, Shri Ram and Lalla Ram, but they were nowhere to be found. So she gathered all the Thakur men and asked them to kneel before shooting all 22 of them to death. This incident is called as the massacre in Behmai. This massacre brought massive outrage. The state was now looking for Phoolan, and by now Indians had learned about her story through media. She was considered a hero. She was considered the Bandit Queen. The state even offered 10 lakh rupees if they helped them get Phoolan. The then Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, VP Singh, resigned after the Behmai killings. The manhunt for her was massive, but they were unsuccessful. The police didn't even know how Phoolan Devi looked like. And now, Phoolan had become the leader of her gang. She even got married to Man Singh, her first marriage where her likings were considered. However, after 2 years of the massacre, she decided to surrender. She agreed to surrender to the Madhya Pradesh police as she said that she did not trust the Uttar Pradesh police. She even laid out few conditions before surrendering. She said that no death penalty should be imposed on any member. The punishment term should not exceed 8 years for any of the members. And also, she wanted her family to be present to witness her surrendering. Finally, in February of 1983, she surrendered and laid down her arms before the pictures of Mahatma Gandhi and Hindu goddess Durga. An unarmed police met her at the hideout place, which was Chambal Ravines, and they traveled to Bhind, Madhya Pradesh. There was a huge crowd of 10,000 people and 300 policemen to witness this, including the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Arjun Singh. The fellow members of the gang had also surrendered with her. She was charged with 48 crimes. She remained in jail for 11 years. Now, this wasn't an end for her torture, as in the jail she was without her consent operated for hysterectomy. She was taken to hospital to operate on her ovarian cyst, and the jail doctor said, and I quote, "We don't want Phoolan Devi breeding more Phoolan Devis," end quote. And so she was operated. After all this, in 1994, Vishambar Prasad Nishad, the leader of Nishadha community, it's another name for Mullah community, intervened, and the government of UP, led by Mulayam Singh, withdrew all cases against Phoolan Devi. She was even given the ticket to stand for elections from the Mirzapur constituency in Uttar Pradesh. She won the election and served as MP during the term of 11th Lok Sabha. In 1998, she lost her seat but was re-elected in 1999 election. However, on July 25, 2001, she was assassinated. She was shot dead by a Thakur youth. On July 27th, Sher Singh Rana was arrested as the prime suspect in the case. He later confessed to the crime. He said that he killed to avenge the 1981 massacre of Thakurs at Bhemai. So this is the story of the Bandit Queen of India. This is one of the many stories that we will find in India where the caste system hinders equality for all. Phoolan Devi was the woman who fought using her own means and going outside of the law to seek justice. Make sure to check out our Instagram page, Crime Time Podcast, and follow us. I'll be back with a new episode very soon.